We're going to be going over our second place Nezuko and Tanjiro Demon Slayer Union Arena deck. Make sure you guys smash the like button, that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more content. So we're going to be doing some more Union Arena content for you, and today we're going to be going over our Demon Slayer list. I didn't have the chance to have everything in hand for the more optimized list, but I'll talk about some of those card choices and things. I have another event coming up this weekend. So starting things off here, we have 4 copies of your base 0 Nezuko. Now, the thing with this is you need this to be a 0 drop. You want raid targets for this deck. You want to be able to have, the ability to actually play the game. And in order to do that, you're going to need zeros to allow you to do this. This also gets, I think it's 1,000 if you have Tanjiro on your field. So yeah, this is a 25k level 0. So if you're pulling aggro on the first couple of turns, if not, this just turns into a raid body and allows you to actually, do things. It also doesn't have a trigger on it, which is a little bit annoying. Then we're playing 4 of these 0 cost Tanjiros. Now, this is a raid target. Also, when it triggers, it goes back to the hand, which is going to be pretty important for, as the game kind of develops and you're going through, it also generates an energy. Your standard 0 cost. And then to wrap up our zeros, we are playing 3 copies of this. Now, I do believe that there are better zeros I could be playing instead of this. The thing I like about this is for the trigger, it draws you a card, which kind of gets you into that situation. You kind of want to customize your cards for triggers as well to make sure that, this deck can actually do what it needs to do. So this is going to be your beginning aggro setup. Now, our ones, we are playing 4 copies of your grade 1 Nezuko. Now, this thing does something kind of cool. So at the start of your attack phase, you choose one of your characters in the front line. You may swap it with this character, which kind of allows you to switch around, like if you got a Tanjiro on the front line, you can actually use this to, bump and switch around, maybe protect something that you wanted to actually have for the later game and continue to develop that plan for this deck, which is definitely a game plan. Now, I am playing 2 copies of this. This is when played, you draw 1, discard 1. And then it also has the stand trigger, which basically stands one of your units and gives it 3k, which is actually not going to be a bad trigger in this because, you can basically be able to chum block an extra attack. You take less damage. Cards like this typically have a decent amount of value, in my opinion, in this game. So, standard, nice trigger. And then we are playing 4 of the 1 Tanjiros here, which all this thing does is it has step, and it also has a stand icon on it, allowing you to restand an ally. Now, this also has step, which during the movement phase, it can kick itself back to the back row. So you can, in the very early stages of the game, if you need to pull aggro, you can kick a 3k up to the front and then kind of dance around for a turn. Get an early blocker. Your opponent's getting some aggression, and then going into the next turn, you can call it back to provide you with some early energy for the setup. It's pretty worth it. Now, this is where problem kind of came up in the deck. You're going to notice there's only 3 Nezukos in here. That's because I only had 3 for this event. So this Nezuko says, when played, if on the front line, if Tanjiro is on your front line, you can choose one of your choose up to 1 character with 1,500 more BP on your opponent's field, and it loses 1,000. Also has the stand trigger icon, but the cool thing about this is you get to power down your opponent's cards in a pretty interesting way. Especially in this game where, you can power down an opponent's big blocker and then just kind of mow on over it. That can be very, very critical to the success of this. So what was I playing instead of the Nezuko? This garbage. Now, I do have the Nezuko coming in. This is going to get kicked out ASAP. But this says when one of your opponent's characters is sidelined once per turn, on your opponent's front row sideline, draw a card, and if you do, choose a card from your hand and discard it. My logic with this was, I was like, it's a 3k attacker, it gives me draw, discard. I can go try to find my other Nezukos. I can't be in a in an awful position, you know, all the time. So I figured that this was a suitable substitute. And granted, you know, not having the extra Nezuko, it is what it is. Now we upgrade here. We get into the good stuff now. So now we have Big Tanjiros. This is the 3K plus that says once per turn when a character is on your front row during your attack phase, choose one of your characters on your field. It gains 1,000, and that's during your turn. So, I mean, hey, who doesn't like 4K attackers? You know, being able to put that pressure on your opponent is going to be really good. Now, I played 3 copies of this. This is probably getting cut for something else, I would think. The only real thing we care about with this is this has step, and it also generates 2 energy. That's the big thing I was looking at here was the 2 energy cost. Now, I'm pretty sure there are better builds for this. Don't get me wrong, but for intro purposes, we were looking at this. Now, we have 4 Raid Nezukos here. Now, this raids on top of the Nezuko. She gets very aggressive very quickly. Her trigger icon is add to hand, or if you have the energy to raid her. If you have Tanjiro on the field, she gets 5k. And then I can play a Tanjiro from my front line. So you may choose a Tanjiro on your front line and another on your energy line and swap them. And that's on her attack. So actually, you have a big... So the combo I learned was you have this and the big Tanjiro up. You can kick the big Tanjiro to the back so your opponent can't out it, so that you continuously have the pressure on your opponent, because, you know, having impact every single turn on your opponent just clears you out of the game. So also this is 4K, so she herself should be a decent blocker to be able to kind of handle a lot of those situations. Now, like every Union Arena deck, we have to play some sort of spot removal here in order to, you know, actually have the deck functionally work. And we are playing 4 copies of the LOL Blow Your Opponent Out of the Water edition. This card is... every deck needs to have these, in my opinion, because having that spot removal option to handle big threats from your opponent is actually insane. Now, I am not playing... I believe I'm playing or was attempting to play a list from one of the last online events that I believe Eggman had. So this list might not be the most optimized, but I know we're not playing any finals in here. So there's that. Now this is the guy that gets everything done. This is the Big Tanjiro. So this thing is always going to have impact 1, which is going to be very important, all right, for a 4K. And then when played, I can add a Nezuko with 3 or less required energy, 1 AP from my sideline to my hand. And then I can play 1 from my hand to rest on the field, which is actually really good, because then you can reset up another raid as long as you can get the base components out off of this and pressure your opponent. But this is the thing that combos with the Nezuko to push us to the back line, and then just LOL at your opponent every single turn. But if your opponent can out your field, well, you're not going to have a good time. Now there's also this Tanjiro. So we are playing 2 of this one. So if your Nezuko is on the field, this will get 5k and impact 1. And those are your only additions for having this up. But it's 45 on a raid. Now, obviously, about as good as you're going to get with this deck, honestly. You've got to remember, you know, you're setting up big things, but you're not going to initially... you're kind of limited in what you can do with boss monsters. And then our last boss is this guy. Mr. Giyu here has a amazing ability. So he has Nullify Impact, which means I'm not going to die to Impact. And then when this card is played, he gains this card cannot be sidelined by your opponent's characters or event cards until the start of your next turn. So basically, this guy's going to get some free protection going into the opponent's turn, which I found out having bodies on the field that effectively can kind of chum block and control your opponent. It's going to be very, very important, and I didn't really realize that until I got the chance to kind of sit down and play this a little bit. This card was actually a very solid addition to the deck. So, a couple changes I'm going to make, but, you know, for a second place run, I am not disappointed. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.